Have Agile delivery and CMMI tensions reached the tipping point? A paradigm is a system of beliefs and assumptions that operate together to establish an integrated and unified worldview that is so convincing and compelling that it is regarded as tantamount to reality. This from Thomas Kuhn, The Structure of Scientific Revolutions. The unquestioning acceptance and refusal to envision alternative explanations leads to a festering of inconsistencies that pile up until the tipping point is reached. This from Jeremy Rifkin, The Zero Marginal Cost Society. Agile and CMMI are two paradigms that appear to be diametrically opposite. Or are they perhaps coexistent, or even mutually reinforcing? To what extent is Agile or CMMI at the tipping point, and why? The advocates of Agile, or CMMI, so vigorously reject the alternative explanations of the other camp that sensible discussion of coexistence of the methods seems beyond the tipping point. The CMMI is a process maturity framework, and Agile is a software development method. Watts-Humphrey defines software process as the set of tools, methods, and practices used to produce a software product, where the quality of the software process largely determines the quality of the software products that result. With Agile, and to Agile's credit, the Agile developer and the customer are in the same silo, inwardly and intently focusing on the essential needs of the project at hand. No more, no less. Everyone and everything else is outside the silo. This is in contrast with the CMMI, with its top-down, global, compliance-driven, organizationally focused culture. Properly aligned and harmonized with the CMMI process maturity framework, an Agile implementation might be considered an instance of CMMI implementation. However, the majority of Agile implementations are non-compliant with the CMMI, even at its lowest process maturity level, level 2. Why do the advocates of Agile, or CMMI, so vigorously reject the alternative explanations of the other camp? That sensible discussion of coexistence of the methods is beyond the tipping point. If the CMMI and Agile complement each other so well, why do Agile advocates so vigorously reject so much of the CMMI guidance related to requirements management and traceability, project management, project control, and measurement? So if Agile advocates reject management practices and anything resembling command and control, then it would appear that progressing to CMMI level 2 maturity is a non-starter. Diametrically opposite, coexistent, or mutually reinforcing? That is the question. The argument for diametrically opposite is that the CMMI is top-down, global compliance-driven, organizationally focused, and Agile appears to be bottom-up, local, need-driven, and team-focused. To what extent are the approaches diametrically opposite, coexistent, mutually reinforcing, or best of all worlds? An Agile implementation cannot be CMMI compliant by accident. Instead, an Agile organization needs to make an explicit commitment of intent and resources to CMMI implementation, must exhibit process-based confirmation through people, must demonstrate process execution-based verification, and must demonstrate outcome-based validation through measured results. This is a tall order, and the Agile community falls short, beginning with its lack of commitment. Similarly, the CMMI framework cannot encompass, adopt, or embed Agile by accident. Instead, the CMMI framework needs to make an explicit accommodation to Agile orientation and its inward-looking, bottom-up, local, need-driven, team-focused culture, and its sensitivity and adversity to management interference. In addition, the Agile community needs to make an explicit accommodation to CMMI and its top-down, global, compliance-driven, organizationally focused culture. All this is a tall order, and its likelihood depends on leadership, so far not present. Beyond just religious-like zealotry, perhaps there needs to be a litmus test for evaluating Agile and CMMI. For example, which approach deals with the challenges of cybersecurity more effectively, and why? Also, which approach deals with the challenges of austerity? Rather than simply insist that cybersecurity is a paradigm neutral with respect to Agile and CMMI, perhaps the answer could be framed around the expertise needed to meet the challenge of cybersecurity, including build security in practices and behaviors, such as software assurance, trustworthiness, and rigor. How do Agile and CMMI stack up in addressing the challenge of austerity? Agile, with its inward-looking, bottom-up, local, and need-driven, team-focused culture, tilts towards austerity. But how does it stack up on trustworthiness and software assurance? Whether companies or governments, the current economic climate is one of austerity. This austerity and affordability challenge has the effect of tying our hands, just when the starter's gun signals the start of the race for the 21st century. In accordance with the austerity of the times, the immediate goal of practical next-generation software engineering is to drive systems and software engineering to do more with less, fast, using smart and trusted technologies. Clearly, austerity is Agile's long suit. Software assurance only has meaning in the context of trustworthiness, that is, worthy of being trusted to fulfill the critical requirements needed for a particular software component, system, or system of systems. Software assurance demands two capabilities associated with trustworthiness: the capability to produce trustworthy software products and the capability to verify that software products are trustworthy. Each depends on engineering and technology rigorously applied. The kernel of the layered defense approach to software assurance is build security in and structured programming with its rigorous and provably correct use of 0 and 1 predicate prime programs, along with proper programs composed of multiple prime programs limited to single entry and single exit. It is clear that Agile and CMMI compatibility is not a settled matter. The debate on Agile and CMMI has just begun. Don't be swayed by the CMMI Institute's openness to Agile. After all, it has a market development challenge to attend to, as it attempts to harvest remaining international late adopters. And Agile is paving the way to this market segment. If Agile and CMMI can and should be able to coexist and be mutually reinforcing, why is it that so many people can't seem to see this? Perhaps it is because people engaged on projects drift into the fog of war and view everything through a straw. If assertions about Agile and CMMI compatibility are valid, the CMMI Institute should embark on an initiative to harmonize these in a new version of the CMMI. To be successful, such an initiative would recognize and respect, not just tolerate, the bottom-up, local, need-driven, team-focused orientation and behaviors embedded in Agile. Here is my contact information. I would be happy to receive questions and have discussions with people on this important subject.